Hey y'all, Pi here, and we are back in our life. I noticed when I was editing the last video that the music's a little loud, so I've turned it down this time. Hopefully it won't be quite so bad. And last time we were just about to pick our moment, and I think I'm just gonna go straight up left to right, and we'll do as many as we can in an hour. So, sorry, I'm also sipping on tea at the same time because I think I've come down with a little bit of a cold. I may not have already mentioned it in the Oblivion LP if you watched that, but yeah. Sorry if my voice sounds awful. I'm doing my best. Let's do shopping. Come back before it gets dark, alright, sport? A familiar voice drifted across the street and drew your attention away from the snail you'd been watching inch slowly across the pavement. Didn't everybody do that as a kid? Just, like, find wildlife and stare at it? Maybe I'm weird, I don't know. Cove waited in front of his dad, pushing his green hair back off his face from where the breeze was blowing it over his glasses. He looked to be paying only a mild amount of attention as he was being handed a few slips of green paper. It reminded you of when you'd first met Mr. Holden, although he's probably not paying Cove to be friends with himself. That's not how that works. Like, even if your parents okay with that, that's still not how that works. Cove's dad seemed to feel your gaze somehow, or maybe he had made a noise, because a second later, his eyes were on you. He waved you over with a smile. He looked happy to see you, but you still felt a little weird for getting caught. You've got to learn how to move more sneaky. You brushed your hands together to free them of sand, and then jogged over to join the two, smiling at Cove first, then his dad.
Joy!
Hi, Joy. Aww.
How's it going?
Good to see you again. What excitement are you up to today, Joy? Blah, 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 blah. Just gonna trip all over my tongue. Taking a walk? I found a pretty cool snail across the road. There's lots of snails around here. Mr. Holden grinned at you all kindly. After you finished answering questions, Mr. Holden's attention returned to Cove, who was preoccupied with folding his bills he had into a tiny rectangle. Sounds fun. Cove was about to hit the stores by the beach. Why don't you go with him? You gave a ready nod, turning to squint in the direction of the stores like you could see the goods they had to offer all the way from where you stood. Oh, is that okay?
Yeah.
I don't mind. Aw. We're bonding. Great, I'm sure you guys will have loads of fun. Mr. Holden reached into his pocket and pulled out a leather wallet filled with money. You found it odd, since your mom's only ever seemed to have cards in theirs. Yeah, some people like cash. Here. He leaned in to pass a crisp tin to Cove, giving him a wink and a whisper. Get something for your friend, too. Sure. Don't bribe friends. That's not how friends work.
Good kid.
That's my boy. Cove's dad ruffled his son's hair as he was straightening back up, the bill in his hand still held out towards the green-haired boy. Take care. Cove accepted the bill after a second and slipped it into his pocket. Then, with one last nod to his dad, he turned and started walking away. Started walking. You followed after him, intrigued at the possibilities this outing might bring. New stuff. Cove strayed towards the gentle tide creeping up the stand, and you fell into place beside him. It was a nice day. The sun was shining, there weren't many clouds in the sky, though the wind coming up off the ocean kept it from being too hot. You took a deep breath, enjoying the scent of salt and ocean air. When you looked at Cove, he was dragging his feet through the sand a little, and you slowed down to wait for him. His eyes searched the ground intently. Are you looking for shells? Cove startled a little at the sound of your voice and mumbled, sort of. If you see any, you can let me know. You could manage that. You dropped your view to the sand, walking carefully so you didn't step on any. You were good at finding shells. You had a lot of them at home, and always found that new ones whenever you visited the beach. The comforting sound of the waves filled the silence with a pleasant white noise, and you played a little game with yourself as you walked along, getting as close to the water as possible without getting wet. It resulted in you having to run up the sand quickly when a wave rushed in more than a few times, although Cove threw a few glances your way. He didn't say a word. What's that crazy lady doing? What did you want to go to the shops for? I need a new sand pail. Yeah? What happened to your old one? Cove narrowed his eyes, seeming to think deeply for a second.
Whoa.
It disappeared. Such things happen. What? Really? Cove ducked his head down, lacing his fingers behind his back. It didn't seem like he was going to continue, so you nudged his arm. How did it happen? Well... Cove opened his mouth and shut it again, considering. I took it to the beach one day. Uh-huh. When I got home, it wasn't anywhere. You left it there? Nope. It wasn't at the beach when I went back. Then you lost it. It disappeared.
So...
What about you? What do you do out here? I like looking at fish. They don't like me, so they always swim away if I get close. But they're pretty before that. Cool. Starfish are fun. They aren't going anywhere, even if you touch them. A small laugh escaped you. That's true. Once you reached the shopping area, the noise level grew exponentially. No longer just waves and footsteps, but the chatter of people enjoying the lovely summer day, the call of birds trying to find bits of food left behind, and lots of salespeople trying to get attention. Yes, we call them hawkers. Oh, and I don't know if you guys can see that, but the light beams are kind of dancing a little bit. That's a cool touch. Had to call attention to that. You sniffed the air as you walked beside Cove. You could still smell the ocean, but there were other scents now, too. Pizza, pretzels, hot donuts. It's nice. The energy surrounding the area seemed to fill you, and there was a bounce in your step as you began looking at all the familiar sights. There were so many things to do, you didn't know where to begin. You looked at Cove, hoping he was just as excited as you were. Cove was glancing from one side of the street to the other with a look in his aquamarine eyes that you couldn't quite work out. Ah, the introvert. What's that? Cove pointed to a large crowd of people gathered near a few tables with large, colorful umbrellas blooming from their middles. You couldn't see past the adults who were blocking the way, but you knew there must be something worth seeing. Without another word, the two of you hurried over to see what all the commotion was about. Feast your eyes on the amazing Alexander! In the center of the crowd was a man with a tall hat and a funny green coat that had 3 long tails. There was a little table next to him with a cloth hanging over it that read The Amazing Alexander in glittery golden script. Why tell people his name if it's already on a sign? Cove hummed with understanding, then turned to walk away just as the amazing Alexander began shuffling a deck of cards. Maybe we could stay and watch? Cove glanced back at the man. He then briefly lifted his arms up off his sides before returning them to place. Excuse me. You grinned, waving for him to follow you as you raced back to stand in the crowd. With that, it began. The magic man pulled one card out of the deck, showing it to the curious onlookers. It was a 4 of diamonds. Watch closely. You did, squeezing through a few of the adults onlookers to get a better view. Suddenly, the man snapped his fingers and the cards just disappeared. Whoa. Cove is not impressed. The amazing Alexander, who had earned his title, turned his head and looked directly at you. He reached out with a kind smile. What's this behind your ear? Tell me. This had to be going somewhere, and you needed to find out. He smelled like popcorn and candy when he stepped closer. It was great. You felt a tug, and then he pulled the 4 of diamonds out from behind your ear. Well, you knew that it couldn't really have come out from your ear, but you still didn't get how he'd done it. There was a light applause from the crowd, and the man gave a deep bow. This is for you. The man plucked a pair of balloons from a clump of them tied down to his table. Both were in the shape of a dolphin instead of being a normal circle. And one for your friend, too. Thank you for being my assistant. Wow. You were really grateful he chose you. After that, he went to someone else in the crowd. Pick a card, any card. My uncle does that every time he visits. Not the balloons, the stuff with the cards. Cove spoke plainly while reaching over to take the dolphin that had been designated for him. He wondered if Cove's whole family was magic. If so, he was lucky. The crowd started to clear some, and you noticed to the side there was a whole rack of brightly colored kaleidoscopes on display. You picked up a kaleidoscope. Love kaleidoscopes, they're fun. Oh, these are cool. You shifted your balloon string to your other hand so you could bring the mysterious tunnel to your eye. A whole palette of colors appeared right in front of you, spinning into all kinds of different shapes as you twisted the end of the tube. Cove picked one up and looked through, twisting the tube at the end. After a second, he set it back on the rack, moving to the other side of the stall. He went under the awning, careful of his own floating dolphin, and you joined him. Are you having fun? He nodded, and you smiled back at him, happy to hear it. When Cove moved towards some stalls nearby, you followed beside him. Yee! They're so cute! I'm sorry, I'm just... They're so cute! While Cove looked at sand pails, you were drawn to a table with colorful keychains laid out on it. They were sewn into the shape of sea creatures, and there was a plaque that read, "Handmade," standing proudly in front. There were lots of different types. You saw a dolphin, a shark, a crab, a turtle. Turtle! Your hand stopped on the sleeping turtle, just barely poking its head out of the shell. It had flecks of metallic green on its back that caught the sunlight when you picked it up. You remembered the turtles you had seen once at the aquarium. You had been mesmerized by the way they gently glided through the water. You were instantly enamored. Checking through the price, though, your heart fell. $6. You didn't know how much about money, but you thought that was a lot to spend on one thing. You rarely had more than a $5 bill to your name. Yeah, $6 is like a huge amount to a kid. Is that what you want? Huh? Oh. It's $6. I didn't bring any money.
Alright.
It's fine. Are you sure? Cove took the keychain from your hands, and that was that. He was holding a small yellow bucket for himself, too. I was always going to get you something. I already got the money for it. You smiled, pleased to have things work out. It was nice of Cove's dad to let Cove buy something for you, too. You had to remember to thank him next time you saw him. After Cove paid, the two of you stepped out of the store side by side, your balloon dolphins knocking together and spiraling around in the air. You watched Cove hold up his new pail to his face, examining it thoroughly. Oh, excuse me. Hey, Cove. Yeah? torn. Your dad gives out money a lot, huh? From what you've seen, that happens a lot with Mr. Holden. You'd never met anyone else who shares dollar bills with people all the time. Cove's brow furrowed in confusion.
Maybe.
I don't know. For a second, you thought about mentioning the way you and his father had met, but decided against it. That was meant to be a secret, and you felt like your feelings might have been hurt if your parents were offering to pay people to be your friend. Cove looked further down the street where different food carts were lined up. He rested his non-cast arm over his stomach, and just as he did, yours let out a light growl. You hadn't eaten since breakfast, and after all of this wandering around, you were definitely ready for some lunch. Let's get some food. Yeah. You two wandered around a short while, looking at all the delicacies that were available. Everything looked delicious, and as the different smells, both sweet and salty, wafted over to you, your stomach growled even louder. After passing up hot dogs, snow cones, ice cream, and pizza, you both agreed on pretzels. Blasphemy! How dare you pass up on pizza? That is God's food right there. Cove got something sweet and cinnamony, and you... Why is there no, like, normal salty one? I guess I got one with cheese. You licked your lips hungrily as the vendor handed your pretzel over, ready to take a big bite. It was covered in gooey, melted cheese, just the way you liked it. It seemed odd to get a dessert pretzel before eating normal food. You found an empty table close enough to the beach that the grit of the sand made terrible noises when you dragged the chairs out to sit down. Eesh. These balloons are gonna make it hard to eat. Cove placed his bucket on the table as he stared at his still balled-up hand that was wrapped around the string. You opened your mouth to agree before an idea hit you. I know. After carefully placing your pretzel somewhere it wouldn't get sandy, you tugged the balloon dolphin out of Cove's hand and tied it in a delicate bow around his wrist.
Oh.
Oh. Cove bounced his arm up and down in place, testing the stability of your knot. After watching his balloon jostle around but remain attached, he smiled, satisfied. Can you do it for me? He repeated the ritual. Cove struggled somewhat with the cast restricting his fingers on one hand and a string already tangled around the other.
Okay.
Got it. The two of you spend a moment admiring your handiwork, both hands now free to allow easy munching on your pretzels. You bit into the doughy treat, savoring the taste on your tongue with a smile as you looked out over the ocean. After a time, you finished your pretzel. You were done before Cove. It was boring not having anything to do. You pulled on the string of your balloon to bring it down to your level. Then you held the dolphin in your hands, manipulating it to make it look like it was jumping through the air. Cute. If you turned to face towards the beach, it almost looked like it was swimming in the waves like a real dolphin. A laugh came from your side. When you glanced back at Cove, he had left the remaining part of his pretzel on the wrapper and was gripping his dolphin too. Mine's name is Merryweather. He's the Prince of the Dolphins. He wears a crown made of seaweed, and all his friends are merfolk. Every now and then, he'll make friends with a kid and let them ride on his back. You sighed, wishing you could meet a real dolphin like Merryweather. What's yours? Cove considered this question, placing the balloon against the table and resting his free arm across it in contemplation. It's... With a loud pop, the dolphin exploded into ribbons. No! No! Oh no. For a second, all Cove did was gape in shock like you. Then his cheeks puffed up, squinting his eyes, and you saw his tears start to glisten. No, not the dolphin. Joy, it... You offered to give Cove your balloon. You looked at Cove, then up to your balloon, bobbing gently in the air above you. You can have mine. That was better than letting him cry more. Cove sniffled, glancing up at the balloon, then back at you. No, it's yours. I don't want to take it from you. It's okay, really. Cove shook his head. Even though it wasn't your fault, you felt bad. Still, the offer seemed to lift Cove's spirits, and that was good. He doesn't like accepting gifts, does he? The passing of Cove's balloon was the last major event of your adventure. R.I.P. Dolphin Balloon. In the end, the two of you headed back late that afternoon. You separated on the beach, and while Cove went straight home with his brand new sand pail in hand, you decided to sit for a while. You watched the waves and the sunset, fiddling with your new keychain. Another summer day was drawing to a close. It had been a good one, except for the sad final note. Okay. That was cute. Let's do grown-up now. Oh, excuse me. One sweltering summer day, you were in your living room with Cove, listening to the sound of the birds chattering outside the window while you lay across the rug on the floor. Cove's dad had dropped him off earlier, and your moms had left the two of you along with Lizzie to play amongst yourselves. Struggling. It had been too hot to go outside in the afternoon, at least according to Mommy, so your sister was starting to get impatient waiting for her golf class that evening. The three of you had had trouble finding something fun to do. The beach and the playground were off limits, and you felt that it was too warm for anything like playing with your fuzzy toy animals. Then suddenly a light came to Lizzie's big brown eyes, and her smile spread wide across her face. Having an idea gave her a new wave of energy. Since we're stuck inside, we should be adults. They don't play outdoors anyways. They're always inside telling everybody they're too busy to play.
Why?
Cove asking the hard-hitting questions.
Duh.
I said why. It'll be fun. Duh. What do they do inside that we don't, besides use the phone a lot? Excluding a small huff, Lizzie decides to ignore Cove.
What do you think?
Joy, what do you think? Do you want to? I bet we could come up with something else. But that's what I'm going to do, and it's not fun when I play pretend adults by myself. Do you do that a lot? What's it to you? Looking at Lizzie, it seemed Cove felt he could understand where she was coming from, and he sighed. Do you really not want to play, Joy? It was clear he wanted some way out, but still felt guilty about it. Okay, I'll stay. I hope this is as fun as you're promising it'll be. Lizzie looked at you, deadly serious. It's the most exciting idea I've had all week. Satisfied that neither of you were about to bail on her, Lizzie thought over her options while you watched. After a few seconds, she clapped her hands together and beamed, apparently having settled on something without asking either of you.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna be a professional golfer. Joy, you and Cove can be a beach volleyball player, a gymnast, or a tennis player. Why can't we pick anything we want? Because I have a fun idea, that's why. And we have to play sports as adults? Yep. But there's other kinds of sports too.
Right?
It isn't the same. What do you think, Joy? Don't those choices sound super cool? You want to be that, huh? You nodded. Lizzie, apparently not expecting you to agree after Cove's refusal, practically lit up. Really? Which one are you gonna pick, Joy? Cove was not impressed with Lizzie's attitude, though he didn't bother talking more about it for now. You thought over the list of possibilities. Beach volleyball, gymnast, or tennis. Out of all of them, you prefer to play... What is the most joy response? Gymnast. If you couldn't spend the afternoon doing cartwheels and handstands in the backyard, you might as well practice them inside. There wouldn't be as much space as there was outside, but you could still try. Yes, that was clearly the top option. Okay, I'm gonna be a gymnast.
Alright!
How about you, Cove? I pick volleyball. I should have known. Okay, so Joy, you're a famous gymnast, and Cove, you're on a popular beach volleyball team, and... Lizzie's ponytail bobbed when she proudly stretched her arms wide. We're Olympic athletes who just competed in the Olympics. Cove didn't seem all that impressed with the announcement. He made a face and adjusted the glasses on his nose. That's really specific.
Rude.
That's what makes it fun. Anyway, Lizzie marched back and forth in front of us, getting lost in her own imagination. I won all gold medals, and people are calling me the next Mickey Wright. Who's that? Lizzie stopped on the spot and turned on him, her brown eyes shining with impatience. It doesn't matter if you know who she is. It's a golf thing. You guys won medals too. Cove, your team was bronze. Joy, you barely missed out on the gold and got silver. It's more real if we're not all first. Uh-huh. I'm okay with that. You shrugged your shoulders, agreeing with Lizzie. A silver medal was still really good in the Olympics. I'm not. Cove folded his arms across his chest, apparently not as happy as you were with the decision.
Sorry.
Lots of people lose at the Olympics. Them's the breaks. Then you're the one who did, not me. Lizzie looked taken aback by Cove's declaration, as though the thought of her losing was completely absurd. I mean... No way, it wouldn't make sense. I'm already practicing my golf game. She took a golfing stance to make her point, pretending to swing her club and hit an invisible ball. So what kind of house do you want to live in? Cove hadn't changed his mind about winning, but thinking about where he'd live as an adult appealed to him, apparently, because he looked back at Lizzie with some of the anger fading. I'm going to live on the beach. Lizzie made a face at him, poking out her tongue. That's kind of boring. We already have that. No, not like the normal houses here on the street. On it, right on the sand by the water. Just like that, all the tension was back. You hadn't even had a chance to choose where you would want to live. That's not very fun or smart, Cove. You can't live on a bunch of sand and shells. But I want to, and I will. Well, technically there are beach houses. They have to be designed a certain way. Cove narrowed his eyes at Lizzie, even though she stood half a head taller than him. You didn't give out a list of things to pick from this time, so I'm picking that. Why are we even playing pretend if we can't imagine anything? I mean, he's right, though. Jeez, well, I'm gonna live in a mansion far away from here, and far away from you. Okay, these two do not like each other. Clearly. One with an indoor pool and a place to practice my award-winning golfing.
It's not fair.
How come you were yelling about mine when your idea is even more impossible? Lizzie's face flushed red, her hands balling into fists at her sides. It's not impossible, and it's better than yours. Disagreements always seemed to crop up when the two of them were together, and you always felt like you were stuck in the middle. But when it came to the topic at hand, this time you thought... Being on the beach was cooler. Who wouldn't want to live on the beach? It'd be really great. You could have windows made from driftwood and seashell wind chimes. Ugh. He smiled slightly over the agreement, then turned to Lizzie with bolstered confidence. You can swim whenever you want if you live on the beach. We can still swim anytime we want it from where we live now. Being a little closer doesn't mean anything. Says you. The two of them scowled at each other. You're being so unreasonable, you... I don't get what you want. This game doesn't make sense. It does. You have to be realistic. I said that. But you're not. You had no idea what to do to make them stop at this point. It seemed like the two of them would just keep working each other up as long as they could. Nothing you'd said so far kept them from being mad. Thankfully, like a greeting card angel, Mom walked into the room. Thank God for Mom. Lizzie rushed over to her, hanging onto the hem of her skirt and poking out her tongue at Cove. Lizzie, Joy, it's time to get ready to go.
You alright with that?
Sorry you have to leave already, Cove. Their mommy said she'll walk you home so you won't be left in the cold. Cove was still glaring at Lizzie, his face flushed red with anger. I can go by myself. But...
Bye.
Bye, Joy. There was still a harsh edge to the brief farewell, but you knew it wasn't you he was mad at. Without giving Mom a chance to stop him, Cove stood up and stalked out of the room, shoulders drawn tight.
Huh?
Okay. Worried, Mom turned to look down at you and Lizzie. You two were playing nice with our new friend, weren't you? You told the truth. We were playing pretend and things got intense. They were like cats and dogs. Your sister's jaw dropped, looking betrayed, as Mom put both hands on her hips. Elizabeth! I told you to be kind to him. He's having a hard time right now. Lizzie's mouth closed back up, replaced by a tiny frown. I know, I tried, but he was... No buts. We both know you can show someone a great time when you put your mind to it. We're going to apologize to Cove and his dad over the phone when he gets home from work tonight. Lizzie hung her head, dragging a foot across the ground in front of her. Okay, Mom. Good girl. You caught pieces of Lizzie sulking to herself about how it was his fault too, but it was over. Alright, we better get a move on.
Let's go.
Let's go, kids. Noah Laney? No... Is that Nolaney or Noah Lane? I'm not sure. Nolaney! We're going with that. Where did you leave the car keys? Mom hustled you all out the door, and you noticed during the car ride to golf practice that Lizzie was quieter than usual. She was usually the first one to request which music to listen to in the car, but she didn't say a thing. Your parents noticed she wasn't in a mood to be bothered. They gave her space, and Mommy just asked you what you'd like to listen to. You chose a song you knew Lizzie liked. Maybe that would cheer her up. You were happy to see it brightened her up right away, and she started singing along with you. Soon enough, her bad mood was a thing of the past. When the car ride was over, you spent the twilight hour watching Lizzie hit things with other girls her age. You didn't know much about golf, but you could tell that she'd really liked it, so you sat with your moms and tried to puzzle it out. It was nice sitting outside after being cooped up in the house all day, and you stretched your legs to let the last few minutes of sun warm your skin. When the sun was finally out of sight, dipping behind the horizon, you all got ready to leave. Instead of going straight home, your moms took the families out to dinner. You went to a restaurant you had all been going to ever since you could remember. The whole afternoon had been a bunch of shouting you hadn't been able to stop, but you could kind of tell that all of this helped Lizzie be less angry. The car ride home was quiet, only the radio providing escape from silence. Lizzie had been in better spirits now, but the closer you got to your neighborhood, the more she wiggled in her seat and frowned out the window. She knew what was coming when you all got back home. Clearly she was dreading it. Soon enough, Mom was turning onto your street, then reversing into the driveway. Once she caught the ignition, it was dead silent. Hey! Oh, excuse me. No one spoke, only unbuckled their seatbelts and opened their doors. Lizzie was the last one out. Once everyone was inside and done taking off their shoes, she propped her hands on her hips.
So,
Now then, Mr. Holden's car is in his driveway, so he should be back from work. That's good news, isn't it, Elizabeth? You and Cove can hash things out before the day's done. Lizzie didn't complain or put up a fight. Her head ducked so she didn't have to meet anyone's eyes. She nodded once. Good. Let's move this to the kitchen. Mom went over to the house phone, the rest of you following behind her. Mommy put a gentle hand on Lizzie's shoulder as they walked side by side. You watched them from the back. This was only happening because you told on Lizzie. You hadn't liked doing it, but had to. Being a tattletale didn't feel good, and you didn't want someone else to tell your moms everything you did. Still, your mom had asked directly, and you wanted to be a liar even less. The four of you stood around the kitchen in a lopsided square. All eyes were on Lizzie, who kept her gaze on her feet. You remember the number for Cove's house, don't you, honey? Lizzie jerked her head in another nod, sullen. Without further prompting, she stepped forward and began to dial. Mom reached over and pressed a button on the base. Suddenly, you could hear the phone ringing. She turned on the speaker. Oh no. The phone rang a couple times, then stopped. Mr. Holden's warm voice came through the other end. Evening, Holding residence. Lizzie looked over at Mommy, unsure. She nodded encouragingly. Hi, Mr. Holden. It's, Lizzie. Can I talk to Cove?
Absolutely.
Lizzie Jones? What a surprise. But of course you can say hey to the boy. He sounded cheery as usual, though definitely meant it when he said it was a surprise. You thought hard, and you were sure that your sister had never called Cove's house before. Mom spoke up before Mr. Holden or Lizzie could say anything more. Her arms were crossed over her chest, her lips pursed. Hi, Cliff. Nolaney, Joy, and I are here too. Good evening. We're sorry to bother you so late. You spoke up to say hello too. Hi, Mr. Holden. The gang's all here, huh? Is something the matter? His voice grew a bit concerned. Mommy was quick to reassure him. No, well, yes, but it's going to be okay. Lizzie and Cove got into a bit of a fight today. We were hoping that the two of them could talk and make up. Is this a good time for you and Cove?
What?
A fight? Cove didn't tell me anything about that when I came home. It does explain the funk he's been in tonight. He chuckled lightly. Despite that, it didn't seem like he really thought it was funny. Anyway, it's good you didn't catch us at a bad time. I'll go grab him for you. There was some shuffling on the other end. He must not have gone far because you could still hear him calling out. Cove! There's someone on the phone for you. After a beat of silence, there was more muffled talking from Cove's dad. Come on, bud. Lizzie called just so she could talk to you.
Are you sure?
Joy's on the other end listening, too. Don't you want to say hi? It took a bit of back and forth, though the conversation seemed one-sided since you couldn't hear Cove properly. Eventually, Cove took the phone from his dad.
Hi.
Hello? Hey, it's Lizzie. Yeah, I know. Dad told me. Cove's tone was defensive. Lizzie turned to Mom, scowling. One stern look from her, though, and Lizzie turned away.
Sorry.
I just called to say I'm sorry for not playing nice with you today. I won't do it again. Excuse me. Lizzie's eyes were downcast, her voice low. Excuse me. You could tell she felt uncomfortable apologizing to Cove in front of everyone. She was still being genuine about feeling bad. Cove must have realized that too, because he sighed quietly. I want gold, and I think Joy should win too. Really? You thought you were worth gold even though you hadn't even wanted it? Lizzie was momentarily stunned, silent by the demand. She probably forgot that it had even happened already. Alright, we all win the gold. Okay, I guess I'm sorry too. A sense of relief washed over everyone at his acceptance of the apology. Mom uncrossed her arms while Mommy's shoulders relaxed. Lizzie's eyebrows raised up. You wonder if she thought that he'd refuse her apology. Dad, can I get off the phone now? You couldn't see him, but it was obvious Cove felt awkward about the situation. He'd come off uncomfortable the entire time, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go back to your room if you want, but be sure to say goodbye first, though. Bye, Lizzie. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Joy. You perked up at the mention of your name. You smiled even though you couldn't see it. Bye, Cove. With that said, Cove must have handed the phone to his dad and left since Mr. Holden spoke up.
That's a relief.
All's well that ends well, as they say. Thanks for arranging this. I'm sure he appreciates it. As Mom replied, Lizzie tugged on Mommy's hand to catch her attention. Can I go now, too?
Good job.
Sure, sweetie. Thank you very much for apologizing to Cove. Mom flashed a brief smile at Lizzie, then nodded her agreement. Given permission to leave, Lizzie scurried off towards the stairs. She seemed to be feeling much better with the incident behind her. Mom and Mommy returned to the phone, taking it off the speaker. They continued talking to Mr. Holden. You couldn't tell what about. You were glad that was the end of it all. Lizzie and Cove might not get along, and probably still won't, but they weren't mad at each other anymore. Mom and Mommy weren't upset either. Everything was finally back to normal. With that thought, you retreated to your own room with a spring in your step. Alright, I think we can do one more, so let's jump into Long Day. It was another scorching summer day, the kind where no sooner had you finished 1 cup of water, you were already filling it up again. Oof. Everyone else had something on, so that afternoon it was just you and Shiloh. This didn't happen much, especially since Cove had arrived. Without Lizzie around, Shiloh looked to you for all the answers. It made you feel frustrated. He was always wanting to hear what you thought instead of giving his own opinion, and expected you to come up with the plans. It was hard work, especially for such a hot day. You drained yet another drink and frowned at the empty vessel. Your thirst was gone, but you still craved something icy cold and refreshing. Something sweet. Something like... Ooh. Cone or sandwich? Sandwich. You craved soft ice cream sandwiched between 2 cookies. There was nothing like that to be found at home. You knew that without needing to look. Your moms didn't keep sweets in the house. Outside were plenty of places where such goodies could be obtained, but they were shops and demanded payment in exchange for their products. Darn capitalism. You voiced your predicament aloud. I want an ice cream sandwich. Shiloh, who had been draped over the sofa, perked up.
Yeah.
That sounds good. We don't have anything like that in the house, and I don't have any money. Oh, let me check if I have any. Shiloh rummaged in his backpack and proudly produced an assortment of coins, plus 1 stray button. Good job, kid. You set the button aside and counted the coins in neat piles. Just over $1. You announced this to Shiloh. He had almost certainly come to the same conclusion, but he'd been watching you expectantly. It's a start. Shiloh beamed at you. We'll need to find some more. Okay. The two of you lifted couch cushions, stuck tiny hands down deep crevices in the sofa and under furniture, and scored the backs of drawers. Most of what you found was useless or gross. Bent paper clips, fluffy wisps of dust, or sandy crumbs, but every so often you would strike silver or bronze and add it to the growing pile of coins. Dusty and disheveled from checking every room and squinting into every tiny nook, the two of you finished pulling your finds. Shiloh held his breath as you counted the coins once again. $2.53 and 2 buttons. Sell the buttons on the black market. You didn't know when the second button had decided to join the party, but you were too pleased with your successful haul to throw it out. Is that enough? You figured he knew the answer without looking to you for confirmation, but the thrill of your success and the reward that would follow canceled out any other feelings you might have had about that. Yeah! You could now afford something at the shops. Just one thing, but that was infinitely better than none. Shiloh clapped his hands. Yay! The two of you dashed outside. The promise of sugar buoyed you on to your destination where, breathless but happy, you stared at the overwhelming number of options. You knew what you wanted, but it wasn't just you who had contributed the funds to get the treat. He seemed to notice your pause. Aren't you getting an ice cream sandwich? Shiloh asked, as though he was entirely separate from the decision, rather than someone with a stake in the outcome. Do you mind? Shiloh cocked his head to the side. It was your idea. You should choose. You tried to get something you both wanted anyway. It wasn't fair for you to be the only one to decide when he'd been a main factor in making this happen. Some of the money came directly from his backpack. What do you like? All of them. They're so good. You press further. But what do you really like? Popsicles or ice cream? Which is your favorite? Oh, it's so hard to pick. I don't know. Frustrated, you cut to the heart of the matter. You want me to choose? Yeah. God. One of those people. And that was that. You got the dessert you wanted originally and hoped Shiloh would actually like it too. Finally, the reward for all your hard work was in your hands. You bit the ice cream sandwich. The chewy chocolate biscuit complemented the creamy vanilla ice cream inside. You held it out to Shiloh so he could take a turn. He shook his head.
You can finish it.
What? No! He didn't want any? After everything he did to help to get it? That was weird. You tried to include Shiloh. Even if Shiloh said it was okay, every story you'd ever seen on TV or read in a book said that sharing was caring. You stood your ground, even as the treat started to trickle dangerously towards your fingers. It's only fair that you have some. We both bought it. But you want it more than I do, and getting to play was a lot of fun already, so you can have it. That's more fair. You held it out to him. I want you to have some even more than I want to finish it, so eat your part. Relenting, Shiloh took the treat and gave it a taste. His eyes lit up.
Thank you.
It's really good, thank you. You smiled, pleased with your good deed. You picked the best one. Did he mean that? Shiloh was always nice, no matter what happened. Even if he hated it, you knew he wouldn't say so. Maybe he thought it was gross and that's the real reason he didn't want to take some. You had no idea. You studied him as he ate a little more. He had every appearance of enjoying himself. Still weird. The two of you began to head back home as he ate. You walked side by side on the shoreline in silence, but your thoughts kept drifting to the boy beside you. Why didn't he speak up for himself? It was almost as if Shiloh didn't know how to say what he felt, or was too afraid to. Are you scared of me? Shiloh opened his eyes wide, seemingly caught off guard by the blunt question. No way! But you don't tell me things, like what you want to do, or what treat we should get. It's not 'cause I'm scared, it's 'cause you have better ideas than I do. Unfortunately, that was yet another thing you couldn't entirely believe Shiloh on. You hoped it was true, and that he really did feel okay around you, though. Shiloh made you unsure about setting a label on the experience of spending the afternoon with just him. There had been good times, and there had been confusing ones. You were positive one thing, at least. The treat was delicious, and that was nice. The sun was low on the horizon as you returned to your neighborhood. There you spotted two very familiar figures up ahead, Lizzie and Cove. You open your mouth to make your presence known to them just as you saw the tears on Cove's face. Oh no, Lizzie, what did you do? You walked straight over, Shiloh at your heels. Once there, you... carefully asked about what happened. Without a time machine, the only way you were going to find out was by asking the witnesses. Lizzie might have done something, but she could have been in the wrong place at the wrong time, or even come to Cove's aid. You wanted to hear the story. Cove, what happened? Joy, I got yelled at. He took a deep, steady breath. Some grandparents got mad at me. Aww. Aw, sorry. Lizzie jerked her head in the direction of a nearby house. Your heart sunk. You knew exactly what had happened. Every year, the same mean old crumpled couple rented that condo for the summer. You, Lizzie, and Shiloh knew to stay away from them, but Cove couldn't have. They're like that with everyone. Even your mom struggled to find anything nice to say about them, but the elderly pair particularly took offense to kids. It didn't matter if they were really nice, like Cove. Yeah, Lizzie said. Lizzie drew herself up at that. She looked pointedly in your direction.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. I was helping. That's cool. Is there anything I can do?
No.
No, I'm just gonna stay away. Or you could teach them a lesson. No, Lizzie. Bad. There was a devilish glint in her eyes. No, Lizzie. What? You should ding-dong ditch them. Go ring the doorbell and run. It'll be great, because they're so slow. They'll never catch you. That's dumb. I don't want to go near them ever again. Smart kid.
You're just saying that because you're a chicken.
Oh, that line was fully voiced. Oh no. Cove glared, but didn't take the bait. Lizzie turned to you. You're not a chicken, are you? You'd rather just avoid them. You looked at the house. Behind those closed doors lurked two beings rich in years but poor in patience. Maybe they deserved retaliation, maybe they didn't, but that punishment wouldn't be coming from you. It was safer to stay away from them, especially since Cove took their outbursts to heart. I'm not doing it either. Another chicken for the coop. This is a hen house now. If we're chickens, you're a lizard, Lizzie. She wagged her tongue at his face. Still better than a bird brain. Chicken. The condo door opened, revealing one of the two culprits. The old man's wizened face was set in a scowl, which was to say he looked exactly like he always did when you saw him. Maybe that was his normal face. What are you kids doing loitering outside my house? Or maybe he was always just in a terrible mood. Nothing? Nothing? He repeated the word as if the greatest crime anyone could commit. Nothing good, more like. Get lost. It wasn't as if he owned the space outside the house, but Cove's eyes, still red from his early tears, were wide, and you thought it would be best to heed the old man's command. Lizzie took off, with Shiloh immediately trailing after her without so much as a glance in your direction. So much for your friendship. You waved your arm at Cove, summoning him to follow you, and ran after Lizzie. The old man's hollers propelled you all from the street to the sanctity of the hill. Only once you were safe did you notice the stitch in your chest and the ache in your legs. You flopped down, blades of grass tickling your face. Lizzie, who had taken the lead in the end, was already lazing on the ground. The four of you took a moment to catch your breath and enjoy feeling of cool grass against your skin.
Cove.
Hey, Cove! Cove lifted his head. I told you there were mean grandparents around here. Cove rolled his eyes, then decided this wasn't dismissive enough and rolled his whole body away from your sister. Lizzie chose to ignore his response and started chatting to Shiloh, who eagerly joined in the conversation. In the back of your mind, you knew you'd be the second fiddle again to Shiloh once Lizzie came around. It always went like that. You still felt a little sad after how much time you spent together today. You had been hoping the two of you might have become closer, but you had to let it go. He was happy where he was. There were other things to attend to anyway. You wriggled closer to Cove. He had calmed down for the most part, and was inspecting a flower, his fingers pinching the stem and tilted the white petals towards him. It's a poppy. Cove glanced at you in acknowledgement, then back at the flower. And the type of poppies on this hill have the name white linen poppy. Mom told me. He quirked a smile. That's funny. He ran a finger around the edge of the petals. It doesn't feel like cloth. You need a lot of them to make anything. He nodded and released the delicate plant. Evaluation complete. This is my favorite kind of flower, but I didn't know what it was called. Thanks. Oh boy. Lots of options. I like all flowers. It's too hard to pick just one. Sorry, flowers. He chuckled. You're so nice. Thanks. You moved onto your back with a small smile and looked at the darkening sky. The blanket of clouds reminded you of a thick throw you curled under on cold, rainy days. You wondered if the clouds would be as soft. They lazily floated on by, splitting from each other, merging and morphing into new shapes. You saw a dolphin. You saw a dolphin leaping through the sky. You nudged Cove and pointed to it. Look, a dolphin. Cove joined you in gazing skywards. Yeah, I see it. Really? No, but I like dolphins. Hey. He chuckled at your reaction. All the sun's light faded from the sky, and the moon rose higher. Lizzie got to her feet, dusting strands of grass from her bare legs, and surveyed her surroundings. Excuse me. The ocean, visible from the crest of the hill, beckoned with every sweep of the tide. Let's go to the beach. There was no argument from the other two. Shiloh was still Shiloh, and Cove would never say no to going to the shore. He was a child at sea. You wanted to go there too. So you eagerly joined the others in descending the hill down to the water. You stepped onto the sand for the second time that day, but it felt different at night. The beach was nearly quiet at this hour. Abandoned saddened castles and footsteps in the sand, too big to belong to any of you, were the only indication of just how busy it had been only hours earlier. The four of you kicked shoes off and removed socks and walked along the water's edge. The waves tickled your feet. I wonder what would happen if you tried to take a bath in the ocean with shampoo and everything. You'd come out caked in salt. Not pleasant. Do not recommend. That would be bad for the fish. That too.
Jeez.
I didn't say anyone would do it. Jeez, you don't have to be serious about everything. You're the one who asked what would happen. That is what would happen. It hurt the fishes. I like this kid. I like bubble baths at home. They're a lot of fun. Me too. Bubble baths are luxurious. Yes. It's been so long since I've had a bubble bath. I want a bubble bath. You've never heard Lizzie use that word before. Mommy loves to have bubbles in her bath. She'll turn the lights off and have candles. I'm gonna do that next time. Hey, when's your mom coming to pick you up anyway? Not for a while. She's busy. What about your dad? How come you never talk about him? Nobody does. Don't you know you're not supposed to ask something like that? Why would somebody want to talk about something they've never talked about? You kept your eyes on the ground, watching your toes get swallowed by the waves. Even if Shiloh never seemed upset when this topic came up, it made you feel awkward just for having both of your moms. It's okay. I'm like Lizzie and Joy. I don't have a dad. But I don't have two moms. I just have one. She's really great. Oh, sorry. I only have one now, too. My mom isn't here. She's back home. It's just my dad with me.
Sorry.
I never had a dad or anything, so I don't feel bad. It's really sad that your mom is gone. Cove nodded. Even if they're all different, our parents are good in their own ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cove couldn't muster a response. You don't think he truly disagreed, though. The silence broke with a splash as Lizzie kicked in your direction. Cold water and sodden sand splattered against your legs. Lizzie giggled, foot still outstretched from the kick. Cove joined in, striking the incoming waves to make a splash of his own. Shiloh scurried out of Cove's spray zone with a grin. You retaliated. You used your foot to smack the water pooling around you, sending an arc of sea foam flying back onto your sister. You laughed as she spluttered, some of the salty seawater having landed in her mouth. She spat it out. Yuck. Lizzie chased you, intent on revenge. You dashed up and down the coast, taking it in turns to be the predator and the prey, as well as joining forces to take down Shiloh or Cove. Alliances were silently forged and wordlessly broken. Everything was fair game in war. Ah! Shiloh's brief exclamation was drowned out by the biggest splash yet, caused by him falling face first to the ground. That would have been bad enough without the wave that followed, cascading over his prone body. Oh god, is that kid okay? Shiloh sat up, shaking his head like a dog coming in from the rain, as you all hurried over to check on him. His hair was plastered on his head, and his soaked clothes clung. If there was any part of him that was still dry, you couldn't see it. That was crazy. Are you okay? Yeah, my foot got stuck and I fell over.
You dumbo.
Way to go, Shiloh, you dumbo. Lizzie, don't be mean. You offered him some help up. Shiloh didn't take your outstretched hand. After a moment, you dropped it. Lizzie was too busy snickering to notice, and held her hand out to Shiloh, too. He reached over and took it. Slowly he started to pull himself from the ground. Then he slipped on the slick sand, dragging him and Lizzie down, just in time for another wave to hit. The water rolled over them. Deserved.
Sorry.
Sorry. What were the odds of that happening twice in a row? You thought they must be low, but there's no way Shiloh would do something like that on purpose to pretend it was an accident, especially not to Lizzie. Even if your relationship with Shiloh felt unclear, he did at least like her a lot. Lizzie was his favorite, right? Smiling boldly, Lizzie extracted herself from the ground and wiped a streak of sand from her cheek. She didn't intend to let this embarrass her. Shiloh got up again as well, this time without incident. He still looked like a drowned puppy, but that didn't stop Cove laughing at the two of them. With that, it was time to call it a day. The four of you made the journey back home, leaving a trail of wet footsteps and sand in your wake. Damp clothes may have weighed down some of the group, but your spirits were high. Your arms swung side to side as a cool breeze flowed past. Your moms were outside, chatting to Cove's dad. We're back! Your mom's faces fell as they took in the state you were all in, ranging from messy to soaked.
No.
Elizabeth, is that all you have to say for yourself? You brought half the beach back with you. They certainly did. What's Marigold going to do when she comes to get Shiloh? Is that how you want him to be for the long drive home? Cold and filthy? Lizzie's expression turned sulky over the scolding. Being the oldest could be fun, but it also meant she was the first to get in trouble when something went wrong. True. Mr. Holden, on the other hand, chuckled as he ruffled Cove's matted hair. You've been out making memories, Bucko. I'm glad you had a good time with your friends. Cove used his slightly moist cast arm to push his dad off. Mr. Holden's eyes widened when he noticed that even that had gotten wet. Now he was worried too. I think they could have found a less risky way to spend time and had just as much fun. That might be right, kids. What can you do? Come on, Cove, let's get you cleaned up and dried off. We wouldn't want that cast to have to be reset. Cove winced at the thought.
Okay.
That a boy. Cove's dad's like really chill and really weird. I'm not sure if I like him. Mr. Holden bent down and plucked Cove up off the ground, ultimately holding Cove against his chest. Sand was already transferring from Cove onto him, but that didn't seem to bother Mr. Holden. Cove protested being carried, but only got a reassuring pat on the back for his trouble.
Take care.
Good night, Cove. Thanks for the talk, Tiff. Night, Jones family, and Shiloh too. Resigned to his fate, Cove twisted his body in his dad's arms in order to turn around and wave goodbye. Smiling, he waved back. Good night.
Fine.
Well, we'd better do what we can to fix you guys up too. Come on, everybody inside. I want you to march straight to the downstairs bathroom.
Ugh.
Yes, Mom. Okay, Lizzie's mom. Don't worry about stopping to wipe your feet on the map this time. That won't do much good tonight. I mean, she's got a point. Sitting on an old beach towel your mommy had found, you waited in the hall. Until you were less sandy, you weren't allowed to go to your room or walk around the house. But you did get to eat a sandwich for dinner there. It felt like an indoor picnic. In the worst possible way. It had been decided that Shiloh would wash first and borrow some of your clothes. He was already finished and packed away in his mom's car. Miss Fields had come to collect him a little while ago. It was a bit of a funny experience seeing him without that hat for once. Lizzie, being much more soaked than you, got to go in the tub next. It wasn't a bubble bath, as she had hoped. This was a no fun allowed clean-up session. At least that's what she claimed. Not much longer, and it would be your turn. When the bath was done, you'd have to go right to bed. After a day like this, though, you were glad that there weren't going to be any further events. Drifting off to sleep sounded like a great idea. Ugh, I can't read. Okay. So, we got 3 out of 5 done, and Sandcastle and Fireflies will have to be for next time. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to do that and also start the next step without going way over time, but we'll see what happens. Worst comes to worst, I'll just have to do some editing magic, as you do. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in 2 more weeks.